Hello, Seekers, and welcome back to the Occulture Shock series that I'm calling Do You Know Where Your Ghost Hunting Techniques Come From? I'm your host, Jess, and today we're digging into a cornerstone of modern paranormal investigation that you've definitely seen if you've watched TV shows such as Expedition X, Ghost Adventures, Kindred Spirits, or, quite honestly, any ghost hunting team either on TV or over on YouTube. We're talking trigger items. Why do ghost hunters bring dolls to haunted asylums? Why did I bring a blue dress to Lake Lanier? Why leave coins on a gravestone or set out a cigar in an old-timey saloon? Maybe. The bigger question is, where did this practice come from in the first place? Because, spoiler alert, it did not start with any of those shows over on Discovery. Tonight, we're pulling back the veil to reveal the history of séances, folklore, and occult ritual to uncover the deeper and maybe creepier roots of this ghost hunting bait. So, grab your EMF reader or your talisman, whatever is your style, because this one's going to blur the lines between the scientific and the supernatural. Let's start by defining what we mean by trigger items. In ghost hunting, a trigger item is basically any physical object placed in a haunted location to entice or to provoke a spirit into responding. It's often connected to the history of the site or to the supposed identity of the ghost. For example, investigators might bring candy to an abandoned orphanage or a bottle of whiskey to a Wild West saloon. In some cases, the item isn't just left out, the teams will also invite the spirits to interact with it. Kind of a, if you're here, can you move this toy or can you roll this coin kind of a thing. Now, the idea of giving spirits a physical something to latch onto is old, and I'm talking ancient old. Across cultures, we see traditions of offering food, drink, or other personal objects to the dead. Most people can automatically think of one ancient civilization right off the bat, the ancient Egyptians. Now, the ancient Egyptians would often leave out household goods, personal items, money, food, etc., to help the family member who passed have an enjoyable existence within the afterlife. In ancient Greece, families would often leave offerings at the tombs of their ancestors, libations of wine, honey, or oil poured directly onto the earth. The Romans had a festival called Parentalia, where they would decorate tombs with flowers and bring cakes made of grain, salt, and wine. And in China, offerings of incense, food, and paper money are still burned for ancestors, believed to provide comfort or resources in the afterlife. Those are just a few examples. There are many, many more. And while nobody in ancient Athens was leaving candy for ghost children in a plague pit hospital, the impulse behind trigger items, give the spirit a tether, something that they recognize, has deep, deep roots. Now, fast forward to the 19th century, and you land yourself smack in the middle of the spiritualist movement. This is where things really start to crystallize into something that looks TV familiar. Séances often involved objects that belonged to the spirit being contacted. A lock of hair, a piece of jewelry, or a photograph might be placed on the séance table. Mediums claimed that these items helped focus the spirit's energy, essentially working as a psychic bridge. There are documented cases in the archives of the Society for Psychical Research where sitters would bring personal items of deceased relatives, hoping for some sort of recognition or a sign. One particularly eerie example is back in the 1880s, medium William Stainton Moses reported seances where personal objects would levitate, supposedly carried by the spirits connected to them. Again, hard to prove, mostly because he refused to allow anyone to test him for fraud, but the pattern is there nonetheless. Objects as a trigger. When ghost hunting then shifted from the mid-20th century, from private seances to field investigations, trigger items came along for the ride. Ed and Lorraine Warren frequently brought items that they believed spirits would recognize. Ed even suggested using religious relics as both bait and as protection. By the 1970s and 1980s, as parapsychology clubs and amateur ghost hunting groups began to spring up, trigger items became pretty much standard. Early guides to ghost hunting, even before ghost hunters hit TV, suggested bringing objects relevant to that haunting's time period. And now, turn on Discovery, and you'll see everything from teddy bears rigged with REM pods to trigger objects wired to smartphone apps. From libations at Great Tombs to teddy bears at Waverly Hills, the through line is there. Now, here's where we're going to zoom out and see the occult scaffolding behind all of this. One could make the argument, me being that one, that at its core, using trigger items is basically a form of sympathetic magic. The principle is this: like affects like. An object connected to a person or to a concept becomes a stand in for that person. This was central to magical traditions worldwide. In European folk magic, you'd find charms that used a person's hair, clothing, or some other personal object that would then influence them. The belief of this like begets like idea goes as far back as prehistoric cave paintings like the ones found in France and discussed by anthropologist Sir James George Frazer within his work, The Golden Bough, which focuses both on the law of similarity, the like equals like concept, and the law of contagion, which is the belief that things that were once in contact with each other continue to influence one another even after they've been physically separated from each other. So when a ghost hunter lays out a cigar hoping that old miner will appear, that's not just paranormal science. It's an unconscious echo of sympathetic spell work, creating a link between the material and the immaterial through an object. Trigger items are also a bit of a spiritual or religious offering of sorts. When you think about it, leaving whiskey in a haunted saloon is, at some level, if not directly, an offering to the dead. That offering connects it to things like ancestor veneration, to Catholic votive candles, or leaving coins on graves. So now, let's look at this from the skeptic's POV. Skeptics will say trigger items are pure theater, and quite honestly, they're not entirely wrong. Psychologically, objects serve as a focus point. Investigators and viewers alike pay closer attention when there's a toy on the floor than when there is just empty space. If the ball moves, even slightly, that is a big moment. But critics argue that most trigger item activity can be chalked up to environmental factors: a ball rolling on a sloped floor, a toy lighting up because of a faulty sensor, a door creaking in response to temperature changes, etc., etc. Now, there's also the human factor, expectation bias. If you're watching a teddy bear with glowing eyes at 2 a.m., your brain is primed to see significance in every flicker. That said, even skeptics admit there's a cultural power in these objects. That teddy bear in the psychiatric ward is instantly evocative, even if nothing happens. The object itself shapes the narrative. So, whether or not spirits are involved, trigger items undeniably affect how ghost stories and how ghost investigations are told and experienced. Today, the use of trigger items has exploded thanks to paranormal media and their audiences and their producers who love it. It's visual, it's creepy, and in my personal point of view, the most important thing is that it is relatable. Everybody knows what a toy looks like. Everybody can picture rolling a ball. Everybody likes candy, and if you don't, there might be something wrong with you. On top of that, technology has taken all of this even further. We now have Boo Buddy, a teddy bear rigged with sensors that detect changes in the environment or capture EVPs. Then there are apps that turn objects into EMF tripwires. Trigger items have become commodified and sold as official paranormal gear. And beyond ghost hunting, the symbolism of trigger items bleeds over into pop culture as well. Think about how many horror movies feature haunted dolls, cursed objects, or toys that move on their own. These tropes resonate because they tap into the same old instinct: the belief that objects carry memory and a memory recognizes its old objects. So the next time you see a paranormal team or myself leave out a teddy bear or a cigar or some candy, remember, it's not just a gimmick for TV. It's part of a lineage that stretches back through spiritualism, through folk magic, all the way to the earliest human offerings to the dead. A trigger item is never just an object. It is a bridge between memory and presence and between the living and the departed. And whether it is a ball rolling across the floor or a glass raised to invisible lips, the gesture says the same thing. We remember you. Please come closer. Now, before I go, it's time for some membership shout outs. My apologies for forgetting to do it last week. I am the worst at this, but special thanks goes out to Eamon W., David L., Patrick T., Grant, Vernon D., Joe_P., Phil R., Space Pirate Games, Jeff J., and Strayfest or Streefest. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Needless to say, thank you all for supporting the show. I really, really appreciate it. And also, thank you to everyone listening or watching today's Occulture Shock podcast. New podcast episodes go live every Tuesday. If you are interested in supporting the show as well as having access to extra show goodies that I make, feel free to join me over on the Occulture Shock Patreon page at patreon.com/occultureshockpod. You can also support the show just by giving us a good review and rating and also telling your friends. I would love that. Or do both. That's even better. I am your host, your writer, and your editor, Jessica Chobot. You can find me across most social media pages, but I'm the most active over on Instagram. My handle over there is at Jessica_Chobot. I also update about the show there as well. This has been the Occulture Shock podcast. I hope you enjoyed getting weird with me today. Until next Tuesday, toodles!